So it sounds like you definitely have your parents' impact on you professionally. Dad from a business standpoint, mom from a healthcare standpoint, probably both of them from a current event, politics, policy standpoint. Which one are you more like personally?
This is so funny. I have had people in the business world, in the healthcare world, and then even in the political world, because my dad did run for office many moons ago, who have said, you look a lot like your dad today, or you look a lot like your mom today. You sound a lot like your dad today. You sound a lot like your mom today. And so I really think I'm a pretty good mix of both of them. It depends on the situation, frankly, depends on the day. But I feel really proud that I do feel very like 50-50 of them, which obviously, again, that sways a little bit from day to day. But I mean, we also grew up camping and fishing and going places where there was no cell service all across Nevada and California, which we loved. And so getting to spend time with your family as well was really important. And that's also always just been very ingrained in me.
That's cool. I think about that just because we have little kids now. And as they develop, like at first, everybody would say that my daughters look more like me. And I'm like, ugh, sorry. Now they're looking more like their mom. And I hope that trend continues. Mom's a lot more beautiful than I am. So I hope my girls look like that. But their personalities, like at times, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so my wife. And then at times she's like, that is your daughter. So you kind of get this mold, and it's just fun to see how that continues to progress as they get older.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny too, because my siblings, we'll sit around for family dinner, which I'm grateful we do almost every Sunday night. And my dad and I will start talking, politics, and my mom, who now works for the VA, will start telling me updates happening from the national level from the VA, because they do, I think it's biweekly phone calls or something nationally, all the way down to everybody that works at the VA across the country. And we'll start talking some policy shifts, and this issue's happening and this person's involved. And I can see all of my siblings just rolling their eyes. Like their eyes are in the back of their head. They're so sick and tired of
They don't want to hear it.
Politics. And they're like, we hate this. Can you please talk about something else? And so it's pretty funny.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can see that. There's my family. It's interesting because we grew up, not that anybody was involved in politics, but we openly talked about it. I would call it more current events than anything. We didn't get in heated debates, and there are people from both sides of the aisle. So for me, I didn't think it was ever taboo to talk about, just because I don't get in shouting matches. If I have a disagreement with somebody, I'm like, oh, well, maybe you have a different perspective. I'd like to hear on that, or vice versa. But I've noticed, like with other people, it's religion and politics. We don't talk about this. I'm like, you can talk about it civilly. You don't have to argue about these things, and you also don't have to like treat it as a debate. If you really want to convince somebody about your position, I feel like just try to plant a seed. Maybe they hear something that they haven't heard before, and maybe that can develop down the road, as opposed to like, I need to win this debate to prove you wrong.
Absolutely. And I very much grew up in that exact same household. We would talk current events, and there'd be something on the news, I don't know what the media outlets that we were really watching back then. I know definitely like ABC and just all those different things. And I remember sitting on the couch with my dad going, why is this happening? And what's going on here? And like, why does this company not like that company? And, different things like that. But again, allowing the conversation to happen and them to be true discussions and talking about the who, the what, and the why, and the outcome. And I really think that's made me a better, not only person, but a better lobbyist, because I love learning from anybody. I don't care where they came from. I don't care what they do, their experience and their true passions and their opinions about things. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what side of the aisle a piece of policy came from. There's always a way to make it better. And you're only going to make it better when all of the stakeholders are at the table.
Yeah. And it's kind of a math equation at the end of the day, too, right? If there's a policy either that you agree or disagree with, you have to get a certain size group on board with that to go anywhere. So screaming at people, hitting them over the head with a hammer, debating them may not be the way to get like a consensus behind a topic. Just a good old fashioned heated debate, respectful debate. So you get introduced to business, you get introduced to politics, you graduate early. From there, what's your next progression in your professional career?
So at that point, I still was very much of the opinion that I might go to medical school because, unfortunately, at least up at UNR, there was no kind of beautiful medium for policy and politics meets healthcare or even business. And a really good friend of mine at the time had just gotten accepted to the Texas Tech Medical School, which what I think what they were doing there is brilliant. your first year of quote medical school, you actually join the MBA program. And when you graduate with your medical degree, which it's 5 years later instead of just 4, you walk out not only with your medical degree, but you walk out with your MBA.
Oh,
and to truly start getting physicians to understand more of a business side, I thought that was genius. It's been running full steam ahead ever since, but that's something I wish a school in Nevada had, or even more of a, go get your MD and then also learn about something else. They had then started kind of an MD meets like an MPA, and that's what I have, a Master's of Public Administration, which is that policy side. And so as I was meeting with people and kind of trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, do I apply for medical school and take the MCAT? Do I go get figure out my full-time job? Do I do something else? And at the time, just getting out of the 2015 legislative session, I was fortunate enough to meet and become friends with a lot of elected officials all across the state and friends who, work in healthcare. And the Affordable Care Act had recently become law. And so there was a lot of conversation and obviously controversy surrounding that. And I just told people, I don't ever want to get into a profession where I'm treating my client or my patient like a number. I want to be able to treat them like a person. And so everyone I talked to had said, I don't quite think becoming a doctor is in your future at the moment, because you're going to be treating patients for 6 to 7 minutes. From the time they walk in, you say your hellos, they tell you what's wrong with them, you make a diagnosis, and they walk out potentially with their prescription. And that's it. And that's not what I wanted. But it was really nice. A dear friend who's a former board of regent told me, whether it's in 2 years or if it's in 10 years, if you still want to go to medical school, I will write you your first letter of recommendation. So it's 10 years later, not looking for that letter of recommendation. So that was great. But instead, I decided to go pursue my MBA, knowing that I could take the policy side and add in the healthcare side, as well as kind of the business side. So all of my extra credits essentially were healthcare policy specific or business policy specific. And I also was really fortunate because I had, I want to say, been a pretty good student during undergrad. I had met these professors who, were doing things well and beyond just the undergraduate level. And so I was actually accepted into a very high level healthcare policy class my first semester during graduate school, even though technically I didn't have all the credentials to do it. But the professor teaching the class had asked one of my undergrad professors if I would be okay in it. And she goes, 100%, 5 stars, let her do it. And so I got to sit in that class with 4 physicians who were all finishing up medical school. They were already out doing residencies all across the state, going and playing OBGYNs in our little small areas of Ely and Tonopah. A guy who had already gotten his business administration degree but wanted to learn about healthcare. And then a gal who had worked for the county health department for over 30 years who wanted to get her MPA. And so between really the 7 of us, I got to sit in that class and learn from all of these different people. And so I did that for 2 years. Right as I started my master's degree, I actually came into my dad's logistics company. I had told him since I was about 14, I kept saying, I don't know how I'm going to learn to be a business owner or learn about small business or be able to advocate for small business unless I have worked at a small business and I would run a small business. Yeah. And so when I was 21 and I just graduated with my undergrad, my dad, I remember it was December, said to me, okay, January, whatever day it was, you're going to be starting at the company. And so I started really in sales, doing account management and account executive. Was the only woman working at the company at the time. Definitely the youngest by far. And I just had a blast. And within a year and a half, took this, smaller courier company that had just been hit really, really hard through the recession, and took it from about a 14-person employed company to a 48-person logistics company where we had a large warehouse. I had landed the first account from the Amazon to post office in the entirety of Northern Nevada. And so we had a bunch of big box trucks. We ran 363 days a year, only days off for New Year's and Christmas. I worked all hours of the day and then left for 3 hours a couple times a week to go do my master's classes. And then I was right back in the office. And I love that. It was extremely hard, but definitely worth the experience and the people I met. And so then fast forward to finishing up my master's degree. It's 2018. And I sold my dad's company in April of that year, and I graduated with my master's in May of that year. And my dad was ready to retire. And so we made the mutual decision as I went, I really love this. I've learned a lot, but I'm ready for the next. I'm ready for the next thing.
Iteration.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next thing. And so that's really just what kind of pushed me getting more involved with NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. I got to become the state vice PAC chair for a while, get really involved in more small business issues, and then took a little bit of time off, which I had never done before, but was nice, and visited my grandparents and truly spent some time with them. And then I ended up becoming a full-time lobbyist towards the end of that year, August, September 2018. And that's where I met Peter Kruger.